Yeah, I got it on the screen there.
I think it's working.
Yeah, there's just a knowledge.
Might want to move that. We've got to be there. Meeting on. I can hear my voice over there.
Oh, that's.
Where is it?
It's over here. Oh.
Didn't know where the voice was.
Oh, it's your account, yeah.
All right, I think we all have the agenda, so I'm just moving through. Hope everybody's had a wonderful day, or at least got through the day, and I appreciate all of your energy to get here on the Thursday before spring break and tackle some important work. So if you don't mind, I think we should just
Dive in.
dive in. Sounds good.
Starting at Article 15.
Yep, and we brought Noel. I asked Noel to be here. I know last time we had a lot of conversation about paid leave Oregon. I was making up some of the things that I thought Noel did, but I was woefully wrong. So I thought I would actually just have her come in and talk about the process
Smart.
of what happens when someone applies, qualifies, all of that kind of thing. So she's here to answer any questions. She'll start off and just give an overview and then answer any questions you might have about her.
Well, okay.
You're on.
Hi, Noel. All right, so paid leave Oregon. Wonderful, wonderful, yeah, wonderful paid
Opportunity.
leave. So, so the way that paid leave Oregon works is as long as the employee works within the Oregon business and has made $1,000 in the prior benefit year. So when you apply for paid leave Oregon, it's gonna ask you a bunch of questions. What type of leave are you applying for? Are you going to use intermittent and or consecutive? You'll have to supply some documentation, and then it's gonna ask for the employee's salary, and it's the salary based on last year. So they do a 52-week look back from the date that they apply. 2 weeks looking back. So most likely they're going to be reviewing the salary that you've made in the prior year. And the employment department will determine, do all these calculations to figure out what your weekly pay is going to be. And it's generally between about 65 to 67%, I believe, is like the maximum. And then they let you know what your weekly benefit will be. So with paid leave Oregon, they allow employees to, you can use your paid leaves and receive paid leave Oregon at the same time. You can just take paid leave Oregon and not use any of your leaves if that's what you'd like to do. Or you can receive paid leave Oregon and basically top off with whatever leaves that you would like to use. So if you make 60%, 67% of last year's salary, it's gonna let you know basically, okay, each week I'm making $1,200 and I normally make $5,000 a month. So you add those weeks together and you can see what the difference is, and that's the employee's decision if they want to top it off, if they want to use their paid leaves and get paid leave on top of it. There's a lot of boons for the employees, if you will. So that is how that works. The employment department, when I spoke to an agent yesterday, at this point, they are 9 days from the date of receipt of your application to the quote unquote approval or denial process. So there is quite a time between that. And we have had employees that have reached out and said, I have to have a paycheck, so use my time, okay? Let me know what you want to use. You want sick leave? You want to use your family illness? Do you want to use your personal? And then they let me know how they want to do that and how many days, and we apply that until they finally get their checks. And then they make that decision of, oh, I only want to get paid leave Oregon, just turn my pay off, or whatever the case may be, with those other instances that I had provided to you, so. And then after that, you know, it's the employee's discretion at if they want to use it intermittently. Paid leave, Oregon only pays in one full day increment. So if you take a half a day, you have to claim the full day for paid leave Oregon to get paid. That's their rules, not our rules. And so, that's paid leave Oregon for you, kind of in a nutshell. Yep, any questions? There might be a lot, there might be none.
Hey, so when a member says they want to use, let's say, some of their sick leave, that's just filling in the gap between the 65, 67% and their 100% to make them whole. Is that correct?
Or they can use their paid leaves and.
To go above, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Currently, when you speak to members and they say they're gonna be applying for paid leave Oregon, it sounds like the process is then for you to say, well, here's all your leaves, right? Run the report. Here's what you got. Tell me what you want to use and where.
Right.
Okay.
I usually say, here's what you have available. You have 300 hours of sick leave, 16 hours of, excuse me, personal, and 24 hours of family.
Yep.
How do you want to use it all? Do you want to use a little bit of this or that? Do you want to get paid leave Oregon and this for that time? And the employee then says, yeah, I want to do this, or, oh, I don't know, I really want to save some for next year. Okay, so it's really what the employee wants to do. And if their leave isn't enough to cover the amount of, if their accrued paid leaves aren't enough for what the leave that they want to take, we can, you know, spread that out. So that way they're using, let's say 53 days, and they're gonna use it over September or October, November, right? So we know that there's more than 53 days in September, October, November, and we can just spread those days out. So they'll get an adjusted salary on
So
that,
it's
based on
consistent.
those days, yes.
Okay.
I've got a question. Go for it. Is there a sense over time that 29-day period for them to approve after they receive an application? Is that the program has started becoming available this fall?
Yes,
Is there a sense that is that approval window, is it narrowing? Is it expanding?
that's what I asked you, because we've had employees that have been waiting 3 months, to be honest, to even for the approval process to come through. So I asked if they're gonna be getting, you know, more people to help, you know, kind of help the slog along. And she says, well, compared to last month, we were at 39, so we're improving, and they're hoping that they're gonna be able to streamline the process, but I can't guarantee that's gonna be any faster than what it is.
This is working directly with the state?
Yes,
Okay, just anecdotally, districts that went with a third party. Well, just the nature of my job is I only really hear about when things go wrong, and that it's just been a mess when they went with the vendor, that maybe going with the state was probably the wisest choice.
I read, yeah. I've heard some not great things with the third party vendors, so.
Thank you.
Now, you started explaining that in order to apply for paid leave Oregon, they had to have been employed. And I didn't quite catch what you said. So they had to be employed the previous year.
They have
Not
to,
here.
okay, fine.
They don't have to be applied. They don't have to have been employed here the previous year. They had to have been employed. They had to have made at least a certain amount of
Yeah,
money
they
in a
have.
look back window
Yeah, so they have to make
Yeah,
$1,000,
In Oregon.
and then they also have to be an employee in Oregon.
made $1,000 and an employee in Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay, just clarify.
Noel, do you know, once they do get approved, so let's say it takes 30 days, then do they get money for, like, do they get back pay?
Yeah,
For the days
so
they missed?
it'll retro back to
Right.
the date that they wanted to start their claim.
Gotcha. It's just kind of that limbo sometimes for.
Yeah,
people.
the limbo.
Troublesome.
And I've heard that some of the employees that have been receiving income from paid leave Oregon is really intermittent. There's not a consistent, like each week they're getting a check. I've heard one person got a check immediately and then another check in 3 weeks. Eventually, I hope, and I'm not this would, that they are receiving all the, income due to them. So, I'm hoping that this process will streamline, but I can't guarantee it.
And I think maybe just for the room, the paid leave Oregon checks come from the state. They're not anything that the employer
No,
has any control over.
no,
Okay.
unfortunately, no, yes. And, just so all of you are aware, there's a lot of big changes coming effective July 1 for paid leave Oregon. OFLA, which generally covers your parental leaves, and if you're going to be absent for your own serious health condition and or for a family member, that is going away. Those protections under OFLA are going away, and they're going to be protected under paid leave Oregon. They have about the same type of protections, insurance and job protection. The job protection piece is a little different under paid leave Oregon. If you are employed for less than 90 days, then we don't necessarily, and I mean we, in a broad spectrum, don't have to hold the position. That's just paid leave Oregon speak, not Gresham-Barlow speaks. There's that piece. There is some additional benefits that they're providing, an additional 2 weeks to help effectuate the adoption and or fostering process begins July 1, and that's going to run through December of 2025. And I'm not sure if they're going to extend that. So instead of 12 weeks to effectuate the process, you can have up to 14 weeks to effectuate the process and or continue for fostering. They're going to be adding 3 additional weeks of bereavement leave. I'm sorry, 2 additional weeks of bereavement leave. Right now they have 2, so 1 week you can get paid for the district. The other week you can use your own paid leaves to help that. And so they're offering a total combination of 4 weeks now for bereavement leave. And same thing, you can use bereavement leave through the district and then the additional time, sick leave or what have you. But the caveat to that is they're only allowing 4 weeks total. So in the event that there was an unfortunate situation and multiple members, you'd only have 4 weeks of that OFLA bereavement process. Still, the 2 weeks for the UMPLA, the Oregon Military Family Leave Act, is in effect. And what was the other one? I can't think of the other piece, but once I think of it, I'll send it to you, just so you can review it. So, effective 7/1, those leaves will now be protected under FMLA if the employee qualifies and paid leave Oregon instead of OFLA, paid leave Oregon, FMLA. So it kind of alleviates the stacking, if you will. So we could have someone that was hired using paid leave Oregon, and then 180 days, once they qualify, they could use a OFLA and FMLA. So it kind of takes that stacking ability away.
And that, to use your word earlier, it's a boon for people who don't have contractual paid leave available at all. All these changes that you mentioned are a huge benefit.
It is a huge benefit, not only for our licensed staff, but for our classified staff.
Okay.
Thank you, Noah.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
And then the changes, you want to go and talk about the changes and.
Yeah, did we pass that out already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have Article 15. I think if you go to page 3 to find the first change, you guys had proposed to add in this category on paid leave Oregon. And I think as Noel's been explaining it, there's a lot of kind of nuances to it, and we've seen it change twice already. Since, well, first it got enacted, then it got delayed, then it got changed once, and then it got changed again, so it's been in flux. So we're kind of adopting a less is more approach in the contract because we've seen these consistent changes to the law. You know, our goal is to make people aware that they have that paid leave Oregon benefit, but then to mostly rely on what the statute requires. The one piece that we did pick up in number 2, so that's number 1, just making people aware that here's where you go to access paid leave Oregon. And I think we're required, Noel, under the statute, we're required to post notices, aren't we?
Yes, anytime that there's changes, we need to post notice.
So there's other ways we make folks aware. But we did add that number 2 because the one piece of the law that is left up to the parties, an employer and employee to agree on is whether you can go beyond 100% wage replacement. That is whether you could use a full day of sick leave instead of just using, you know, in Noel, I think she said 65 to 67%. So you'd be using a 0.35 to 0.33% of a sick leave day on each day. That's an employee's right. The employer has to agree to let somebody use more of a sick leave day. And we have through number 2 there, specifying that members may choose to use their accrued leaves up to a full day, sick, personal, and or family to supplement PLO or to decline to do so. So you could choose not to use any leave. So it really is employee choice. And we've given employees the choice through this agreement to go above the 100% wage replacement.
Say that again. Sorry.
Yeah. What's that, Eric?
Could you say that again?
Through this language, we would be giving people the right to go beyond 100% wage replacement if they wanted to. Because they could use a full day of sick leave, which would get them.
On top of their 67%.
Exactly. So they'd be getting 1.67% pay for each day of paid leave Oregon.
Yep.
Got it.
Now, their sick leave would run out quicker than using 0.33 a day, but some people might elect to go that route. I think it's whatever people's individual circumstances are, so we're happy to give people the choice to do that. Honestly, it's a little bit easier for the district to manage if people use a full day of sick leave each day instead of tracking 0.33 of a day each day, so.
Well,
Nodding.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I just want to clarify because number 3 is still struck through. So in number 2, does that mean that members could still choose
Yes.
which type of leave?
Correct.
Okay.
They would choose which one to use first, which one to use next, and so forth.
Okay.
Correct. Correct. Number 4 is struck because the law provides that paid leave Oregon, the statute says that employer provided health insurance benefits continue during a period of paid leave.
So Brian, is the district adverse to having members choose the order? of
No.
their leave?
No, I think that's what's intended in that
Number 2.
parenthetical there.
If we added and the order into 2, then
Yeah, I don't think that would be a
we
problem. I
can
think,
simplify it to 2 instead of 3.
yeah,
That's helpful.
other questions about anything paid leave Oregon or our proposal there? Okay. If you think of some, feel free. But the next on page 4 and page 5, we have 2 responses to your proposal, and I think Ryan is going to cover those.
Yeah, so you had wanted to kind of clarify the responsibilities of members when they're on both short-term and long-term leaves. And so we definitely acknowledge that when you're on leave, especially if it's an emergency, that kind of situation, there needs to be some serious accommodations, right? You can't expect to not be at work and yet be at work at the same time. So we tried to work kind of within your language and just adding some additional language. Members on leave shall not be required to provide any lesson plans. This is on number 4 under G. Beyond the first 10 days of leave, in addition, members will provide descriptions of general units of study or suggested goals for the substitute teacher to allow them to plan for appropriate lessons. Members on leave shall not be responsible for grading any student work. So that's very similar to the verbiage that you provided. And then down on H, short-term leave, 10 days or less. Number 4, members on leave shall be required to prepare all lesson plans. Members on leave will grade all student work upon their return to school. And that's it for 15.
Does the district feel that having the phrase members on leave is like a better description? Because I mean, the title of the section is short-term leave, right? So,
I think that's who we thought that language is applying to, is
Correct.
the person who is on leave.
Right,
Right.
and we figured that that's probably what you meant. We just want to make it
okay,
very
Yeah.
clear.
okay. This seemed redundant. Brian
A
usually.
little redundant.
A little bit, but.
We're rather not.
Yeah, I think we tried to work within your 10-day framework. We just split it into the two sections, whether it's in, the appropriate one, either more than 10 or less than 10 or less. Questions on that, please?
Just absorbing it
Sure.
in a minute.
It doesn't seem like anything that you've changed in G or H was designed to really change the intent of what we brought in terms of language. Is that accurate?
I agree.
Okay.
We agreed with your,
Okay,
the
you just
substance of it.
wordsmithed it a little bit.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
We still need to make a letter change, but
Yeah, the format.
the header,
Oh, because of the insertion of
Right.
paid leave
Yes.
Oregon will then, yeah.
we made that mistake initially.
And we just kept it going.
Mea culpa. But. You know. Okay,
Number one, article one, sorry, I wanted to start with Noel so that she could think what she wanted, and now we're starting back at the very beginning. Page one, y'all had presented, oops, this one. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
think you had
recognition 45 days.
45, and we are proposing 60 days. The law changed to, for long-term substitutes who are teaching in class for 90 consecutive days become members or contracted or temporary employees, which I think was the intent of having that 90 days there in the beginning. Since the law has changed now to 60 days for subs, we thought that would be an appropriate place to align that.
Can you just repeat that? You said that, what happens after the 60 days based on the law?
So any substitute teacher coming in and teaching longer, I think it's that 60th day, they become a temporary employee. So a contracted employee.
Which means they're eligible to be a member and all the rights and so on.
Which would, yeah, that would be.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Also, that 60 days is a pretty common leave period because it's the 12 weeks for paid leave Oregon and OFLA and FEMLA and so forth. So it feels like a natural cutoff for us.
Questions? Moving along.
All right, 13, quickly. There's lots of discussions about this, this article. Really just one, it's page one, am I right?
Does it go with
It should go for.
14?
Yeah, we have
It was-
14
Mhm.
tonight.
We can go
It
with
was, they were crossed out.
Yeah,
So, goes down. I'm proposing to go back to original language on the total of 10, from 20. And I'm just gonna have it side by side here. And back to 2 on the 14 from the 3 days. Sure. And the back to original language on the family leave. When we looked at the data, making sure I'm not forgetting anything here. I think we feel that the amount of family leave that is being used is, and if Noel is still here, folks are using their family leave and there's ample amount of sick leave left. Folks are not using all of their sick leave. So feeling that the amount of leave that's provided seems to be enough to support members at this time to get what they need to take care of themselves and their families. Paid leave Oregon. And paid leave Oregon, the district provides, pays into 60% to paid leave Oregon to now offer a lot of those additional leaves that employees can go ahead and utilize as well. So we are offering that.
I think another challenge with your proposal would have converted the family leave into the sick leave, which then causes some crossover with PERS. So then sick leave, then I guess our question, honestly, we don't know. Does it become reportable sick leave on retirement to PERS? Would people be able to transfer that to another district? It would accumulate from year to year. So right now that, there are a lot of side effects of that transition from family leave over to personal leave to sick leave that gives us some concern. And so, I mean, it really is one of our challenges is to deal with staff absences and get subs and get coverage. And Paid Leave Oregon coming on board has been a great benefit, but I think if you look around the state, we have seen an increase in the amount of leaves used because that's available now. So it's being used as it should be, but it does provide an extra challenge. So as we continue to have more and more opportunity for leaves, we do then have more difficulty filling positions, finding subs and things like that. So it is one of the things that is a challenge for the district to both provide leave that folks need, but then also to cover in behind them is a balancing act for sure.
Does the district believe that by switching the family leave into personal sick leave, so we just have the one leave instead of the two separate types of leave, that it's gonna cause an increase in member use of leave?
Not in a single year snapshot. It would then start to accumulate in an unlimited amount, right? And so
Sure.
right now that family leave, you either use it or you don't in that year. So I guess over a span of years, it could, for somebody who's not using it typically every year, then it starts to accumulate. There's a bigger pot of leave to use in a given year. So I don't know but we didn't necessarily look at that as being, an increase in the amount of leave that would be used necessarily. It's 15 days.
Right.
And it would still be 15 days. I think, again, it was a question of how is that treated under PERS? Do we report that as accumulated sick leave? Does it become transferable to another district and things like that we had some question about? We had quite a lot of conversation about that because we were looking at the two subjects sort of separately, like the increase to 20 was an increase of 5 days. So we had conversation about the difficulty that would pose. Then we talked separately about the transition of family leave to sick leave. And well, was that something we'd be willing to entertain? And it just raised a fair number of questions for us that kind of left us at current contract language.
Does the district anticipate an increased costs in not having the two separate leaves and just having everything in personal sick leave?
I don't know that it's an increased cost. It'd be
Okay.
hard to quantify or predict if it was.
Yeah, we weren't intending it to be an increased cost.
Yeah.
We were looking at it from the standpoint of we have to educate members every single year about these leaves go away. You
Sure.
should probably use those first,
Yeah.
right? These leaves you keep. You should probably try to hold on to those,
Yeah.
right? And now there used to be a reason to have the separate leaves, right? One was a better benefit for our membership, but with the changes in state law, all the different things that have happened,
Mhm.
right? They're essentially the same thing in terms of members' ability to use them for the same purpose.
Sure, you
right?
can use your personal sick leave for family illness
Exactly.
to an unlimited amount now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do
So
agree with that.
from the association standpoint, it was purely just trying to streamline it, so
Mhm.
we don't have two separate things that mean the same thing.
Yeah.
One that expires, one that doesn't, right? We didn't anticipate it being any sort of increased cost to the district. It would potentially be a higher number of rollover over time.
Yeah.
Which would get reported to PERS, sure, right? When we threw the number 20 out there, we were trying to increase the amount of leave that members have,
Mhm.
absolutely. But again, not anticipating that it's gonna cause people to use more leave. It would just allow them in the first, 3-4 years of their career to build up a little bit more,
Mhm.
right? It's really difficult to do the first 4 or 5 years of your teaching career to build up enough leave,
Sure.
especially if you're gonna try and start a family, so you can actually take some paid time off. But the addition of paid leave Oregon certainly helps that out
Mhm.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about the personal day. I mean, everyone's got 3 right now. It's kind of this funky, gotta roll it over, use it, don't, we're trying, HR has to track it, right? Again, we're just trying to streamline it, just 3, just 3 days a year.
Yeah, when you say everybody has 3, what?
So right now, if you don't use one, right, you roll it
If you
over.
don't use one,
Right,
you roll it over.
Like,
Yeah.
right, and that's what almost a lot of people do, right? A lot of people will use one, they'll keep one, they'll roll it over for the time that they have, just in case,
Uh-huh.
right? It's
I mean,
kind
in
of
any
a,
1 year snapshot, it's a 2-day provision of leave though, right?
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. So I mean, I guess we saw that as an additional leave. I guess I'm not seeing, you're saying, well, we have 3 every year. If you didn't use one and
Correct.
rolled one over. So,
Correct,
I mean, we just looked at it pure and simple as another day of leave, which again, from a standpoint of absences and filling behind folks, and we know we have really high usage times during the year. Oftentimes tends to be in the spring, tends to be Fridays and Mondays. We have a pretty high personal leave usage. Those days get really hard to fill with substitutes. And so more personal leave would, from our perspective, potentially grow that problem, I think. So we acknowledge that the current mechanism here has not resulted in, the 700-day cutoff has not been applied. I don't remember when that was bargained, how
Long time
many people
ago.
were in the bargaining unit and so forth. So you had struck it when you went to 3. We just reinstated it because we didn't want to look like we were being opportunistic and saying, yeah, sure, we'll pick up that change.
You're just
but-
going by current contract.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think another reason that we propose that as well, besides being streamlined, is the number of locals and other local districts have just straight 3 days. And there's not this mess of
I was gonna say, I never
mechanisms.
noticed that in a number of contracts
Yeah.
when we were getting our.
Just trying to get on the
ready.
same footing and the same level. So, one question I had, and I'm realizing that I probably should have asked this earlier. Do we know what the actual, I'm gonna go back to family leave real quick. What the actual, I heard you say that family leave is used, but to what level? And I guess I could put in an information request of
Yeah, I
How-
wouldn't have
what-
those exact numbers, and Will might know more better than I would about how much family uses leave used as a district, or at least from licensed
I
staff.
have a full report, but generally speaking, depending on when the employee is taking the leave. If they don't have a lot of leave, they'll use all available paid leave, including family illness. If they're a little later in the year and, they have, some leave built up and they return, maybe they use all their sick and their personal and they save those 5 days for when they return in case the kiddo is sick during the year or whatever the case. It really, is dependent on the situation with the employee. There's really no, definitive answer, like, oh, everybody uses it, or some people use 3 days, or whatever.
So this is a difficulty that we have, as Cyrus alluded to, and it's about educating the members, but I'm sure that we have plenty of members who could have used family leave. They have a sick kiddo at home, they just pop in for sick leave. Instead of using the 5 days that are gonna go away at the end of the year to hold on to their sick leave. And who knows, they could get to the point where they're having to come to the end of their own sick leave at that point. When the family leave was left unused, and then having to dip into things like the sick leave bank and other complications. So
We can get that data for you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is there more?
No, I think the last part is that, went back to contract language on the sabbatical.
Yep.
So,
Other pages.
yeah.
Twenty-three, work here. Okay.
So there's a lot of language here that's kind of a mix of our language, which is what this process is all about. So we, in that first paragraph, we accepted your language about 3 days. And then the middle of that paragraph was really wordy and took several attempts to try to get the wording right. It may not be quite right, but you can see there the extra days will be attached to the week before or after the 192-day work year unless the member agrees to other times. Just trying to add some clarity around it's attached to the contract year. At the end of that paragraph, you see that we made a change to the additional work days, the notice being given between March 1st and March 15th, just so there's some flexibility there, but still kind of meets your need in terms of not notice way too far in advance or too late. The second paragraph there is really a combination of language that we proposed and that you proposed around Juneteenth, but also around conversation around use of statewide in-service day as an opportunity for conversation. If there's a proposed calendar situation where that makes sense. That's it on page 1. The very top of page 2, we kept the strike on the conference prep with the zeros there, the strike after that chart. That was part of what you had in your proposal as well. On the proposed calendar, I know we had lots of questions about the 10 days and where does it fall? And thank you, Eric, for some of the clarification you provided. Really where we came down to is just leaving that as current contract language. There's already a process in place with the board for the original calendar. There's a first reading, so then it's another 30 days before they actually adopt. So there's some natural time built in. And then if it's regarding changes that are made, which is what we believe that 10-day addition was about, there still is a process in terms of board agendas that are posted with notice and agendas 5 days in advance. So we feel like that kind of takes care of conversations that may need to happen, and it's not something that's a regular challenge that we have. Moving into C and D, we struck the part at the top about the instructional hours. It does tend to be seniors where we end up short. Sometimes it is our high schools. It's very rarely our middle and elementary schools because there's less of an hour requirement there. But really we want to be sure that we're meeting Division 22 requirements or whatever corrective actions they might send our way. So we've stayed with the current language there. And it's not something that's come into play very often. I think it's once or twice in my 27-year career that that's happened. The end of that paragraph, we got some clarification. We think this is what your email was saying, Eric, in terms of just clarity around staff staying beyond the regular contracted day, being compensated minute for minute in the event of inclement weather, and we use the same language again for crisis or disaster closure. So it's just in both places. And then Shonda was going to talk a bit about the conference piece at the end.
So it was proposed to, for me to add in the 8 hours of conference time. And we, struck this, as when we're looking at conferences, the components that go into elementary, in middle school and high school, don't have that. And as we move into, data programming like Panorama, and the information that we give out at conferences is stuff that we have generally as a classroom teacher thinking about, talking to our parents about DCAs, the data that we collect by progress monitoring, already data, attendance data, all of that information is packaged and readily accessible. And I feel like most of the time, teachers can really just talk to that, similar to if a parent calls to find out how their kiddo is doing. And so we propose to strike that. And there's a process in Article 24, under number 7 that we use.
So basically, you're saying that 8 hours of conference prep is unnecessary if it's like not right up against a grading period? Because it's so easy to pull the data? But that's what you're saying.
That's our current process, yes.
Can we look at that 24 and you reference that, what it said?
Saying 24.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I can pull it.
Are we still talking about conferences or can I ask a clarifying question?
But let's get to 24.
I think 24 just. That has conference in there. The second one, the 7.
Yeah.
24, I think, just talks about how they're scheduled.
Correct. Schedule.
Yeah. Or how many there can be and yeah, what the composition of that day is and so forth.
There's nothing about conference.
Nothing
prep.
about conference prep.
24.
I agree.
Mm-mm.
Okay, yeah. Not that I'm seeing, looking at it anyway.
It's not.
Manpreet, go ahead with your question.
And so I apologize, this is just me being a little bit slow to process, back in A. I think I understand what you are saying here, but how do you envision that looking for people who work a 195 day schedule?
This is in regards to, so the 195 day isn't, that's not this, right?
Right.
So those days have been arranged with that supervisor as kind of they have been taking place. So is there, I think that's part of what we were trying to unpack. We were asking, like, how does that fit? So if we're adding a day of curriculum instruction, what we've done is really tried to map out what that experience is like so that folks are able to participate in a DLI, their DLI days, but also in the whatever the instructional PD might be as well.
Right, but as this is written, it seems like there's still a possibility of conflict, which is what we've been running into, right? Is that curriculum instruction is saying there's training on this day, and those are the same days that are calendared for people who work 195 days.
So is that part of the week of
Well, that's
part that you had added? Is that why it was the week of? So,
Yeah, I think our actual proposed language was agreeing with what your proposal was, but we were just trying to make it more clear because the way
Yeah,
it's
it currently is
worded,
102 days.
the way it's worded, it doesn't make sense.
The-
Week of the immediate beginning or the end, so we were trying to
Yeah,
word it to just make.
yeah, we
what
believe
you
we
had
were
proposed.
agreeing with your proposal,
Right.
but that the sentence was
Right.
Was just-
not very understandable.
The addition, the creation of the 195 days calendar schedule came after the creation of this language. This is old language. And I think you're just continuing the 190-day language. So,
and our intent would be that our DLI staff or our special educators that have those 3 days, if that, for whatever the added day for PD on math curriculum, right? Would they be able to attend all of it? Because we want our DLI teachers to be able to participate in that. So it's an added day, so it'd be 4 days essentially. So is your goal that everyone's able to participate or is, okay, that is our goal as well. It's not to limit DLI to only having to maybe attend 3 days instead of 4. If there's a day that's.
if we were to insert language of after the 192 or 195 day.
I just, yeah, because I don't think is the 195 actually in here?
No.
Just the
it's
3
not.
days plus make it a 195?
So some of so we literally look at the calendar and try to map out on behalf of members, right? Like that Friday is required for all new staff. We've been trying to do PD on that Thursday so that any new staff, it's 2 days in a row before they start work. For DLI, we have those at the beginning of the week has been our goal. I know there's been conversations about different things, but then those days could happen prior to whatever that added day is. And then that Friday that's required for HR for new employees.
Because there's nothing in here right now that says that DLI and SPED, that those 3 days have to be attached to the beginning of the 192 day calendar.
Right, I don't believe there is, because it's just, I think it's because it's in 31, so whatever it says there.
My interpretation of the change to the 195 that was just made last contract is that that was a direct application of this language, right? And that y'all just decided to publish and make a pay schedule because you knew that you were gonna do it and it was gonna be consistent. So everybody works a 192, and then we got the folks who are working an extra 3 days or working a 195. So like, it's being applied according to the language in 23A right now. And our,
It hasn't always though, I don't believe.
the training has occurred in time that's not the week prior to or
I believe for
after.
DLI it has.
1 year it did 3 years ago.
Was it the very first year?
I think it was the second year.
Could have been an MOU on it. I mean, this far in, I think the intent was that it's all following this language, right? And that's why it has. And
So,
they're not running a training in July or the beginning of August.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean, right?
Nobody's trying to do that, and I'm not disagreeing, I just wanna
Yeah.
make sure that
Clear.
we understand it. But I think the concern that we've been having is the overlap, right? Is that
Correct.
People are.
People
expected
can't
to
be
in
places at
places.
once.
So
Yeah, yeah,
That's it, I just wanna make sure that
It's a
contract-
scheduling concern.
yeah.
Yeah, that it's not
it's-
forcing that conflict to happen.
It's complicated every year because we also have optional trainings for people that we're trying to have optional trainings the week before the week, right? So optional is 1 week, and then if there's something that's required, DLI sped days or a required added day for PD, that it's that week of the required HR day, which is the week before people return.
And that won't conflict with the one required me day for new hires.
The
one-
required day on the Friday?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I think where it gets even messier though, is when we do start to talk about 2 or 3 days, right, of added time, how that works. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure that, I don't know when we do that, but, or parts of it would be optional. We did that with math, I believe, this year for middle and high school. They had a required day and an optional.
Hmm.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, our goal is to create opportunities for people to be where they need to be in a way that makes some sense.
I'm gonna have to form my questions later.
So talk to us more about conferences, because
Yeah.
right now, we have conference preparation identified in the summary of work here table, right? And then the notes of, it's based on the 07-08 conference preparation, when conferences did not occur directly leading up to a grading day. Conferences occurred separate from a grading day. It seems like the district is trying to create language that says if they just choose to move conferences away from a grading day, that they don't have to give members any preparation time. And they would just say, conferences start 4, you start 4, you better be ready when parents walk in, just pull the data on your computer, flip your computer around and have a conversation with the parents, right? I'm hoping you're gonna tell me I'm wrong, because that's what it seems like.
I don't think there's a plan to move those conference times away from where they currently fall.
But if
So-
the district did choose to, and we don't have that language because it's struck, right?
So currently, North is a targeted school and improvement, and so, we had some funds attached to that, and in talking with the leadership team, teachers really wanted the spring conference opportunity. And so currently, we are running spring conferences that'll happen, as soon as we come back from spring break. And they see anywhere, specific students anywhere from about 8 to 10 students that they decide within a schedule. And then they had an hour of prep as part of that.
So that was a staff decision that was made?
Mhm.
And we don't have an agreement around that, Eric?
No.
That's definitely an issue, but
So then I also think about things like home visits that take place. So what constitutes a conference, right? Is it that there's no school that day and it's a conference, thing that's happening? Or is it, like, what is it?
I think it's tied to the parent conferences, which is currently identified as 2 days, right, across the school year.
Mhm.
That's why conference preparation is above it in the table.
But it also sounds like you're saying that for spring conferences, the teachers do need prep, which is why you're giving them an hour. So that doesn't seem to align with striking the language.
Well, the language in here is proposing 8 hours anytime you do a conference, which we collectively felt was excessive.
Anytime we do conference that is not aligned to grading days.
And how many conferences, right? Like a situation where it's part of a class or strategically done, what does that look like versus kindergarten teachers that do home visits in the fall? Those are conference-like, but we haven't counted them as conferences. Like, there's just so many scenarios where if it's about school is canceled that day because we're having conferences, that feels different. Or we can tighten up some language around that to still create opportunities for us to be strategic and supporting students and families, those conversations.
One question I had about, the requirement in C, in the inclement weather closure. The language that you're using makes it say if staff are required to stay, making it the purview of the administrator clearly. Is it your intent to say that the principal decides, the building administrator can decide and order somebody to stay beyond their regular contract workday? Or it doesn't seem voluntary. It doesn't seem like it's an option for the member to decline.
Yeah, I guess we're picking up on language, yeah.
I-
So-
I-
Or
yeah.
even up here when students are dismissed.
I think the purpose of that definition was to also was like, if a staff member just on their own decides to stay, that doesn't necessarily automatically mean
They're gonna
they get
pay.
a TTW. There's gotta be a communication with the principal and a discussion. It's not like, okay, so-and-so's been in the buildings for this many hours beyond, they get a TTW, right? There needs to be a communication.
Okay,
And I think
That
it's-
was my recollection of that.
Yeah, well,
I
and
think
also
the
in,
sentence Before, oh, sorry.
sorry, yeah, section D says, in that particular closure says adequate staff as determined by the administrator will remain on duty to supervise students. So that
Which is
sounded
the only
like,
section that existed, which is why we brought that language in D, but you guys also brought it in C as well.
Well, that was,
with our,
Yeah.
I think you guys introduced it originally only in
Only
D,
in
right?
D,
And then you said we actually wanted to cover both those scenarios. So we were trying to utilize the same language on both of those.
And we, I think last time agreed that it already happens, like that we're trying to kind of capture current practice in terms of folks that are asked to stay to support students in these situations have been paid.
what is it your intent to be able to just order somebody to stay?
I guess we don't talk about it in that terms necessarily.
I mean, it
Right.
sounds like that.
Hey, I
Staff are required to stay.
I need to get out, I need to leave because where I live, the roads are getting worse faster than it's like go, but if I mean, if you, down in section D, if you have a closure that's related to some sort of a earthquake, fire, flood,
Yeah.
et cetera, we might say everybody has to stay because we have to set up like a reunification
It's the most
spot.
extreme scenario, which is why that language is there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
From my recollection, this never happened, under
No.
D.
Exactly.
thankfully.
But under
that-
C,
Don't say
it- under C it has,
Yeah.
but we don't have language around it. Which is why when we've had the inclement weather, it's been kind of an all call, like, hey, we got 20 kids who haven't been picked up yet. Is there anybody who's willing to hang out for a little while, right?
Yeah,
And I don't think we're talking about standing in the way of that.
no, and we're not looking to change
But-
that practice.
Right, but what triggers D is far more extreme than what triggers C, which is I think why that language was originally brought there.
Yeah,
So would it be okay to say, or would you be open to that language from the sentence before? And those may be reassigned for the remainder of the day or excused to the right direction of the principal. So instead of required, if staff are reassigned this day, I mean, just kind of following that same language if
we're talking
required.
in C.
I don't,
But I think the difference is if it's it's a early release.
Correct.
People are,
It's
you
within
can
their
assign
contract.
them through the end of their contract day
Yeah.
versus I need you to stay another 30 minutes to be sure we get these.
You just stay till 4 o'clock,
Right.
you just stay till
Right.
4:30.
Right.
Exactly.
right.
If we need to differentiate the language between C and
Okay.
D, we can.
Okay,
Okay.
that's helpful.
Literally cut. and
Trying to
paste
be
it.
consistent.
Sorry, Eric.
It's Eric's fault.
Thought it was a win.
Thought we had it.
Mhm.
Nope.
And I think that takes us to the last, which is 33, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
33, you guys had made an original proposal, we proposed something back. You know, I felt like what you made in your second proposal was fairly similar in impact to the original proposal, which would have locked in, you know, non-contractual levels if they were in mandatory subjects, which definitely is a concern for us. And Mark's not here tonight, but I think he brought up a very specific situation that had prompted this. I understand that there is something behind this, but generally speaking, again, I think our intent would be what's bargained in the contract is the standard, and that we don't have new standards created when practice, it, you know, causes conditions to go beyond, above what the contract requires. So, and again, I said all this last time, it's like bargaining without bargaining, right? Like, we were able to provide more than the contract
I think we're gonna do some side by side. All right, we are recording. Yeah.
Making a full.
Oh, finding.
You have to excuse me, I'm just checking my, March Madness picks.
Yeah, how you doing? You doing all right?
Well done.
Yeah.
My doctor's at home and she was watching it, sending me updates. So, especially next week, but she's not ready. No. We're here. Bye. No, it is a five program. She actually, could have, she was gonna try to do it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's just.
Okay. You all say copy of, but I'll rename them later.
That's okay, no worries.
We all back?
Yep.
Okay.
We are back.
I forgot to mention that, Mark Kim is not with us tonight. We are missing him, of course, but, his 50 cents of humor. But he's, his mom flew into town. His aunt passed away recently and mom is in town, so he's taking care of mom. So.
Give them our best.
Yeah. We are responding with Article 3, which is GBA ECBC rights. And I think we're getting really close on this. I think we're basically in agreement with the two sides, both of us, getting close to where we want to be. So upon request, this is in H on page 2. Upon request, the council shall be allowed 10 minutes, once a month to make announcements as a scheduled item during a district directed building meeting, not including member collaboration times or professional development. And then scratch on the agenda, any faculty meeting.
Can you talk more about the scratch part? Just thinking behind on the agenda. Was
Well, I think that was a strike already, right?
Yeah,
that already there?
yeah, we
Okay.
had mirrored that strike in our proposal.
Okay.
Faculty meeting is kind of, it's older language and
Mhm.
this gets at, you know, what meetings look like currently in our district. And the fact that we're looking for those 10 minutes of district time. Any questions about our language or changes there?
Can I just peek at something
Hey, my guys,
really quick? Sorry.
if you want, I can pull up.
Was there, Eric, the difference between, I think we had, I mean, these are very small differences, so I'm just trying to make sure that
Yep.
we're speaking the same language. Like, we had during a building directed meeting and you have during a district directed building meeting. Was there something you were trying to clarify that? Or wondering if it would include or not include, or?
It's largely because the term district directed indicates that it's used elsewhere. And it indicates that this is time that is under district control. But it's not going to be one of the large district meetings. That's why we use the term, district directed building meeting.
Right.
Do you see any issue with that?
No.
Defer to Tracy on that.
I guess I'm just like, I think that's the same as building directed meeting, which was our language, but. I think,
We did add the part about, you know, that it doesn't include the collaboration
mhm.
meetings.
Yeah, I'm still struggling a little with the intent of district directed building meeting, but
What's the concern?
I don't know, I need to think through. Just doesn't feel right. I think overall, we are, maybe it's me, maybe it's me.
Not you, it's
I'm
me.
struggling with district directed as a phrase in some of this, because we do have, like, our buildings are the carriers of that, or are we, it's their time, it's not my time, so it might be more about, like, it's a principal directed something, it's not a district directed something.
Or maybe.
So it's the nuance of a building and what happens with that local and some autonomy there, I think is maybe part of it for me, so.
I'm thinking too with the district, you don't want it to be the bigger meetings, and I
Right.
think that's.
But that's why it's district directed.
And I heard you saying that that wasn't what your intent was.
Not the intent.
Yeah.
You know, the language that we have in the contract mentions other district directed
Mhm.
time that is largely under the purview of the building already.
Yeah.
So the language lumps that district and building directed into one lump term,
Yeah,
district
I
directed.
think part of it for me, it's redundant if you're saying that it's not during collaboration time.
Okay.
So we can talk about that.
Right.
I mean, we don't have building
Yeah.
staff meetings.
Say that again?
We don't have building staff meetings.
I know.
And that leaves us Wednesdays,
Mhm.
and the Wednesday is explicitly identified as district directed.
The PD and
We
collaboration.
could change the Wednesday to be building directed.
Are they called district?
They are building directed.
But they're
I know, but
they're
the
district directed.
wording in the, you're saying the wording in the contract.
That's what it
says,
says, exactly.
And that's what you picked up or
Correct.
mirrored right here.
Got it. No, I think it's when to be redundant, when not to, right? It's address it.
I'm just trying to make Brian happy.
That's all we want.
All right, I think we understand.
That was the only thing in that article, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So number 4, Article 4. There are 2 pieces. Actually, 3 pieces. The first one is under non-discrimination. Looking to change the language, and I don't think we have any disagreement about that, but we're just sticking with it because there wasn't a response.
When
from
we
y'all
give
on
you
the
guys,
last one.
when did we give you a counter proposal on this? You remember the sequencing of this one?
Initial proposal,
Was the
but it was
initial-
also at the end.
Mhm.
Right.
Doing it the 26th would have been our initial.
Counter for,
This is the first counter.
oh, that's right, so my apologies.
Yeah, it was just our initial, right?
Yep,
Okay.
so responding to your initial, bringing back our initial, still sticking with the gender identity. We heard your language around evaluation. It's interesting that we came back with the same section. Or at least initial, both the same section. So we did a little mashup. And our concern with the language in G that your team posed the last time is that there was a lot of language that would potentially get at the district having, or even building admin having a say in the policies around things like formative assessments and summative assessments within a term. So teachers teaching, I gotta give a test. And the way that that gets graded and the format and everything else has largely traditionally been the, at the discretion of the member, at the discretion of the teacher. And so we are looking to remove language that includes that. But what I think we are really trying to get at, and both teams are really trying to get at, is at the end of term or midterm, that when recording grades for midterms, and this is our language, when recording grades for midterms or final grades at the end of each term, the member will use the district approved grading and scoring scale, which is, I think, what was primarily your interest. Then we added back our language that we initially proposed, which is the district will notify the member and the district's record shall reflect the change. If a building administrator goes and changes a grade, that the member would be notified. Any questions?
No, I mean, if the person doesn't work there anymore, do you still see that being appropriate or necessary?
You're not a member.
You're right.
Could happen
they're
at
not a
that
member.
end of year grading and somebody might not be working, you know, they may be leaving employment with us.
At that point, is the person a member?
They're not a member.
Says the member will be notified and that person's not a member.
I don't think, yeah.
Okay.
Talk to me a little bit more about some of the formative summative piece, because I'm thinking about district common assessments or required rubric or.
Well, we've always had, DCA. And those rubrics that are used. But ultimately, traditionally, it's been the purview of the member to decide how that gets graded. There's a lot of flexibility and a lot of licensing around making grading equitable, making grading really work for that group of students. And addressing the needs of the students within their classroom and at their levels. So, we often bring in, it's not like we're not gonna say, we can't take those DCAs or those grading rubrics. But we would definitely like to maintain control of how we go about grading our students.
So more about the day-to-day kind of work that you decide to do, or an assessment you decide as a teacher to do, as opposed to a district required diagnostic or
Total.
that's what I'm trying to kind of tease out there a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we do have some requirements and there's some things that we are trying to tighten up in terms of requirements that we have to the state, where there've been some additional things in the last couple of years that we've needed to add. What are those called? Performance, it's not that, it's a little different for secondary. Okay, I need them.
Like different curlies, you mean, or like the requirements for civics in social studies, like I'm not sure what you're.
Those are social science, LPAs and ours, things.
Yes,
Yeah, well, yes, and those have been, those are state required.
yeah.
Right,
I guess
but
I
they
wanna
don't always end up in the
differentiate that.
grade book necessarily, right? When you're doing that, it's a snapshot. How are kids doing? It's for comparing buildings or comparing districts, right? It's not necessarily something that's gonna be
Right.
entered as a
The
formal
teacher
score.
was
Graded
control
on
over
the grade.
whether that
one to
fills in the grade book.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely,
Agreed,
right?
agreed.
Well,
Absolutely.
you started talking about how our language was too vague in terms of formative and summative assessment requirements. That's what made me wonder about some of those other tools.
Because like LPAs are graded on a rubric, you have like the 1 through 6, and you can't get around.
Right, which is
Right.
fine, yes,
Right.
mandated by the state,
And the
yeah.
challenge with that would be if you gave somebody a 4 and I said, no, that's actually a 3. Like, that's what we're talking about, is
Sure.
like changing your interpretation of a grade as opposed to this is how a tool we're using to assess students.
Yeah, and I think the purpose of this language was really to focus more narrowly on grading scales and grading policies in general in terms of like, and when I think of even policies like grades are due by 7:30 AM on this day, right? Like all of those types of things are district directed in terms of like teachers can't just decide, I don't want to do progress reports this time, right? Like it wasn't to necessarily get into the weeds of how they are like assessing their individual students or creating their curriculum, outlining their curriculum, that kind of thing, which it sounds like that was one of the concerns you guys had when you read the language, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, it was super broad.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could be interpreted lots of different ways.
It had lots of pieces that were,
right.
that talked about assessments. I'm struggling.
So that's why we made a very specific list, right? We're talking about those 6-week progress reports, those
Yeah,
end of
The
semester
original-
terms, right? We're talking about the final grade,
right.
right? As opposed to what is in the grade book, right? The teacher is determining what is in the grade book.
Exactly.
If the district wants to mandate, 90, 80, 70, 60, like, okay, right? I mean, they kind of already do that with Synergy. It's all in the system. Right? So I can't go into the grade book and unilaterally decide that a 55 is gonna be a passing score, right? I can manually change kids' grades, right? But the percentage systems that are set up in Synergy are fixed. No one can change them. So
I think teachers can change those.
I can change an individual assignment that I put in, and I can make an individual, like if I'm using, let's say, a 5-point rubric, I can make a 1 on my 5-point rubric be a 50%, right? But in terms of the overall final grade, 50% in Synergy says F,
Right.
and there's nothing I can do about that.
I think teachers can change that, and I would support them being able to
Okay.
change that, just to be clear. And it looks like what you guys struck was the and policy. So it said approved grading scales, scoring scales and policies. And it sounded like just having that policies word felt too broad.
Correct.
For you guys. Yeah.
The other piece in here is under just cause. We are just bringing our language back around just cause.
And I don't remember if we had like, passing initial proposals
That's what
on
it
this
was.
one or
That's what it
something,
was.
because I can tell you, we don't have a objection to your proposed change in E. So I don't think that our proposal, I'm thinking we made an initial proposal and you guys made an
We did.
initial proposal. So this is the first one that's now responsive to
Yep.
one of the others.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we both brought changes in G.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
You want to speak more to your just cause? I think you've already.
I can say it again. I mean,
For the record.
our probationary members are deserving of protections, just like members who've been here for more than 3 years. And our interest is in giving them some form of protection from just straight up dismissal. Like to give them the opportunity to, if they are struggling in their work, to get help, struggling to make progress in their craft, and being able to potentially save their job at the district. So that's the purpose for that strike. Okay. Number 7. We've gone back largely in number 7, agreeing to the change that the district is, that your team is proposing, with the renaming of steps to levels. So, but the thing that we struggled with was, in the last session on the 13th, your team added language that would just notify a member that they were being investigated. And I don't know which is worse, being pulled into an official meeting and being told that you're being investigated, and not being told what you're being investigated or what kind of information is being been brought forward, or finding out about it secondhand. I don't know, I don't think that that is all better. And definitely not what we're looking to get at. Our team is struggling to see the need for the change. This is a 15-minute meeting that is given for an informal meeting. If there's a complaint about a member, before an investigation starts. And it doesn't need to involve a lot. It doesn't. We're really struggling to see how it holds up the district in proceeding with moving to the next step if they really need to. Almost all of the examples we've heard are examples that would be moving straight to formal anyway.
Because they would result in somebody being on paid administrative leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's a really narrow band of situations that is that gap between fairly minor things and fairly severe. So I get it. We're not trying to cut out the informal kind of problem solving level for those complaints where it's appropriate. And definitely not trying to eliminate the step where people get notice of the specifics of the complaint, because that's happening in number 2 step, or what we're gonna now call level 2 anyways, right? I guess I hadn't contemplated that making the member aware of the presence of a complaint at the informal level wouldn't include some discussion of what that complaint was like.
Like the nature of the complaint.
Yeah, I wasn't envisioning it just like, hey, Cyrus, just so you know, there's been a complaint filed against you.
Because that's the current process, right? Is people are made aware that there is a complaint against them and what's the nature
Yeah.
of the complaint,
Yeah.
right? So that's what, when we were reading the district's proposal, it seemed like it was lacking some of the pieces that we currently have right now.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it was gonna be a change in the current process.
Yeah, that wasn't the intent. I would agree with Eric that telling somebody that there's been a complaint filed against them and not telling them
Right.
sort of at least what that complaint's about is,
Torturous.
That would just be torture.
yeah.
Well, and I think.
Like, is it
our-
this serious? Is it not serious? Is
Right.
it, should I be worried? You
Right.
know?
It
Yeah.
seems like our response was trying to solve a problem that you had presented, like
Well,
this is anxiety laden when things are happening and the member doesn't.
well,
Doesn't know why.
the problem existed in moving straight from formal straight from an informal to a formal without even notifying them.
Right, and I think the language we put in was hoping to like, hey, now there has to be some notification.
Yeah.
In
So
there,
how
because,
is that
Let me-
materially different from what we?
well, right, what I'm, as I read it. And I could be, I'm happy to stay with you, quite frankly, just so you know that, I'm just trying to go in and say, what I'm reading right now. Says that the purpose of this informal meeting is to try to come to some kind of a resolution, not to inform, right? So that's where I'm like, well, we can add that little piece in there, that it can also be to just let somebody know there's been a complaint. That might be inherently in there as you're trying to resolve something, you're also telling them about what the complaint is, true. But I think that our intent was to try to add a little bit more meat to it so that it's not only trying to resolve something, which sometimes maybe it can't be resolved just, by having a conversation. But at the very least, I'm going to notify this person and say, look, Eric, there's been something happening. I can't give you all the details, but I need you to know that this kind of complaint has come about. Don't think we're gonna resolve it, just me and you talking about it right now, because it could be a little bit bigger, but. So I think that was the intent of it. It wasn't to change or get around trying to solve the problem, but just to add a little bit of an extra piece of protection so that there's more information.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we can talk as a team about whether we're making it more complicated than it needs to be, or whether we didn't add maybe a little component in there that seems like might have been missing, so we'll have that conversation.
For sure.
I think, I understand what you're saying, and I see how it could be interpreted that way, but I think it's not necessarily saying there's only one discussion, or saying that particular discussion is where the resolution would happen,
Mhm.
right? It's fairly general, so there's the informing piece, and then there may be additional informal discussions,
Mhm.
right, as part of that. What's described in that first paragraph?
You know, in interactions with the district and a member, the district and the association, we are constantly seeking the lowest possible resolution, level of resolution. And that's really what the informal meeting is supposed to be about, is resolution. Because the lion's share of complaints get resolved at that first go.
Correct.
And just having the ability to skip it entirely, we feel is, it's wrong-headed in the way that it goes about trying to find a resolution.
And I'm not sure if it was ever our intent to skip trying to solve it at the lowest possible level. I mean, I think I speak for everyone.
Yeah.
I think we all would like to solve preferred at the lowest possible level. So no one wants to skip and go straight to.
All right.
Yeah, I think some of it's also about transparency, right? Like, and I think maybe Angela's idea of adding some language that allows for a notification and then moving to level 2, because the flip side is also true. Like, you don't want to go through an informal process when you've got allegations that you know are much more serious. You also want to provide due process to the employee and let them know, like, there's certain things steps we want to take here that go beyond this level 1 informal process. Like, you're gonna want to get union representation, that sort of thing, right? So I think that's also the piece of this that of trying to finesse it, is to be able to be transparent, and maybe that can still occur in that level 1 to let them know, like, the significance of the allegations or whatever it is, right?
If we're gonna go to level 2, they're gonna be headed for administrative leave, right?
Not always.
It doesn't always,
Not always.
it doesn't always go to paid administration.
He goes, right, so he goes, I
I
get it,
mean, just-
right.
Yeah, see, that's the whole thing. It doesn't have to be an
If
administrative.
it is going to, it immediately moves to level 2.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, I think I understand your concern with that anyway, so that helps.
I said the word, and then I helped.
We're waiting.
Yeah, I know. I think the basic elements of the complaint procedure are in the current language, but I think I'm struggling to think of an example of beautifully written complaint language, but I think maybe with rearranging some elements, the intention and the flow of the process could come through better. For instance, just even looking at the 5 points at the end, they serve as good guidelines to overall process. And perhaps adding those at the start might help give guidance as to what are good practices when it comes to complaint handling, and then getting into the precise process beneath that. I think maybe restructuring this, I'd be willing to draft something. Maybe your team could take a look at it and see if we want to improve it, that could maybe, I think, get to what both of us are proposing.
Sure, happy to. We've kind of wrangled around with this in its current form a couple of times, over the years. So, I mean, if there's a different look at it, definitely happy to.
Okay.
I personally think the timeline part is out of order, because if I want administrators to know, the very first thing I want them to know is they have 7 days. Like at first it talks about the meeting, and then later on it talks about that you have to have that, yeah. So that's my own personal out of orderness on this thing.
So perhaps I could talk this with the team first, but I'm wondering if we, next time we bargain, we could bring a revised Article 7. And
Yeah.
bring that forward.
Yeah, if you guys decide to go that route, after you guys talk, if you decide to go that route, that'd be great. If you end up deciding you want us to give a counter
Yeah, we
proposal,
can
that's
talk.
great too. And so just let us know sometime before the next meeting. I
For
think.
sure, we can talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Thanks.
do you have other questions?
Good talk.
Did you, when you were looking at ours, did it feel like there's anything that, I mean, some of these are fairly significant articles that we presented, like sick leave and paid leave, but you know, I'm not imagining you can caucus and give us a response on some of those. I didn't know if there felt like any that you believed after a caucus you'd be able to respond to. The one of yours that I think is we could maybe have a response to after a caucus is 3.
Right.
So I don't know if we want to do that, or if you'd rather just like work as a group. I mean, we also have work to do as a group too.
We got stuff to TA.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry, Angela, probably like,
If
hey,
you're interested.
yeah, I'm always interested in that.
Yeah, we have those.
Okay,
And yeah, I think
I'll probably push.
we're really
it.
close on 3, that
Yeah.
for PA and stuff.
We can talk about what maybe I don't know what we're doing today, but
okay, well, let's
Say 10.
We said we were
Let's-
coming back.
yeah.
Maybe not the same time. What?
maybe 23.
Oh, maybe. We also wanna, if you can think about things you wanna bring back for the 9th. And we'll talk about that, and then also dates, getting dates on the calendar,
Right.
and I talked about that, so.
Yeah. And unfortunately, my notes about those dates,
They're done.
could you shoot those at me again, please?
Let me, because
Or you can just text me.
I'll text
Yeah.
you, because I don't remember where I wrote them. I think they might have been in a chat.
So this is my problem too, is I wrote it on a separate piece of paper instead of my trust notebook.
Oh, you know what, that's right, I put it on my phone. Oh, my God, and Brian, so they
All right.
they're right here, I'll text them to you.
so we're taking like a short caucus and then coming
Yeah.
back. Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
That I did find them.
But there's the-
You have. Look at this, totally different. You can put it in front of them.
I think it's super useful for editing,
Mhm.
because you don't know where you're kind of vision.
Yeah, because it'll have the date on it. At the time. Are we recording?
We there? All right. We are bringing back, both Article 15 and 1. But with 1, we are just accepting the district's change.
Great, another TA. Yes.
There's
25 to go.
Oh, you just signed off on a bunch of them.
Oh, that's true, okay.
Celebrate.
I'm like you.
Have another Snickers bar.
Come on. It's like Killjoy.
Okay, great.
In regards to 15 here, unpaid leave. With paid leave Oregon in E. We are basically taking all the changes. We took out 3 and 4 because we're both agreeing that those aren't gonna go forward, but we added, and you can see it highlighted into where it says members may choose to use their accrued leave, which is your language. We added in any order they choose, up to a full day. And that's, the rest is your language,
Okay,
right? So I think we're really close on that.
yeah.
And the
Um,
formatting is correct.
Yeah, we fixed that.
Yep.
We're also accepting your changes in H, number 4, and I, number 4. So that language we're in agreement.
Okay.
This is a.
So
And if you don't like anything in H or I, then it's your fault.
She's picking the format, some of the formatting part of it.
we did,
Yeah, some of the things
So much of
like
it-
got moved.
Yeah.
So rather than fight with Microsoft, we
well, and it's
decided.
Microsoft to Google translation.
We'll let someone else.
Yep,
Yeah,
Um,
the
but we
indentation
did,
we didn't fix, but the lettering.
we did change the
we
letter,
did not attempt to fix indentations.
Yeah.
so there we go.
Okay, I think this one's good.
Yep. Let's do it.
You can sign off on it tonight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we not clapping on this one?
How we were doing like that.
Ready, 1,
Oh.
2, 3.
That's the one I like.
Nice.
I like the 6 o'clock, so ready?
That's,
Yeah,
uh,
just saying.
no,
Gotta
but-
count it. Ready, go.
But what if I miss the,
Done.
if I miss the first one, I come on,
You have to
I just do
catch it.
5 or do I have to?
You have to do 5, you have to.
Oh,
end them
okay.
in.
So I don't have like an awkward by myself.
Yeah.
Like working on my app, my app.
If you want the owl to exactly.
Work on that.
Let's go. Inability to start.
Did I write on it?
Okay,
Yeah.
just
All right.
sign off on it.
I'm really curious what they're
Sign
commenting
on.
on.
Me too.
What's that?
Wonder what
They
their
can't
thoughts
comment,
are.
the comments are closed.
No comments.
Okay.
Comments are closed.
They just have to sit.
I just thought, I think they're buzzed.
They're just saying, yes.
Take notes on the post-its.
Okay, so that's.
No,
I can't tell.
I think we'll sign and then we'll. Yeah, sign underneath.
There's,
Bailey. And then this will be, I'll sign this one. And then we have the 1. And we can bring 1 back.
I made the change, I mean, I pulled it up as.
I'll print one.
Sure.
I can go print it right now,
Yeah, I'm just gonna go.
but I'll give you my badge.
Yep.
Um,
Go back.
I'll give you my copy, which doesn't have the original 45.
Yeah, Toshi,
This is-
I'll print it.
Okay.
They can just run one paper.
All right, while we wait on that.
We don't need it on color paper.
I wanted to do it on there.
Yeah.
We're also the dates. We talked about the dates. And a lot of the dates were very dependent upon whether it was all day or if it was evening. So we didn't know about any specifics about those, about, the timing during the day. But what we're proposing is accepting these following dates Four twenty-two. We would like that to be an evening session. The same with, May 7th. But May 22nd, we would like to do an all day. Potentially. And then June 4th, we'd like that to be in the evening.
Can you say those again? April 22nd?
Yep. May 7th, 5/7.
Can we propose, can I propose that one more of those be all day, just because there's
So much to do.
much to do?
Because our next one wasn't all day, that's why we kind of alternated them, right? Because we're meeting on the 9th already for an all day.
And
That's
then
why-
the 7th was going to be a day one? Was May 7th, May 7th would be.
Would be
7th
a
is gonna be an
PM.
evening.
Okay,
Right, it wasn't until the end of May.
Me too.
And then like 7. Name seven is, concert at Springwater.
Yeah.
We'll
Just have to carry.
We'll just have to live stream.
Live stream, we'll have our break watching.
What was the one after May 22nd?
Yeah.
No, all day.
Evening,
Evening,
So we got 3.
May 22nd, all day.
yeah,
Copy.
Yeah.
I would love to have one all day somewhere in there, and not because, not that
That's
I'm
just
trying,
fine.
or even if we can shift,
Yeah.
if there's a way to have a. If you wanna go to 8, some members can come, maybe it starts at noon or something, or 2, and goes for the full, it's just about getting the.
Getting a longer period of time together.
Yes,
Okay, so what do
Does that
you
make
proposing
sense?
for that?
Does the district have any other dates besides the dates that they threw at us?
these are the dates that were, I gave you all the dates that we had.
Right, and they were in either or, so
Yeah.
we looked at who was available on a particular day.
Yeah.
And these are the best dates.
So could like the 7th, for example, of May be
Like a noon to 8,
2 to 8, or I don't know what we've been doing, 8 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
So
a noon to 8?
Noon to 8?
I don't remember, I can, our whiteboard. What's that? Chad might have an issue.
Which day?
The 7th.
And I don't know that I have a problem with any of the dates being
Like a 2 day.
on. I'm just
I
saying
could
that
do-
keep
Noon
that.
to 8 is what it would be. Sorry.
I don't think we have an issue with which date is longer.
May 7th?
So if it's not the 7th, it should be any of those.
Be able to swing it.
I think we'll be able to do it, Eric.
Yeah, noon to 8.
On
The 7th,
7th.
We all good?
Again, sorry.
noon to 8 on the
Team.
7th.
Stacy?
Okay.
No, just, no vacations yet.
It's not ideal for my students, but I could do it if we need to.
Would another day be better?
Well, let's look.
This May 8th.
We-
That's the day that.
So the 6th,
Literally. all day.
There's
Students.
definitely some.
Like.
Do I have a
Stop.
Would the 22nd be better, Ted?
Yeah. Yeah.
what's that?
yeah, they're all dates that I can think.
I'm unavailable on the 9th. of that.
Yeah.
That was 5, 6, 5, 7, 5, 9,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. So if there's either the 22nd, could do a 12 to 8. Or there's a 4, so we're
Instead,
doing a 5.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay.
And or a 6, 4.
See, I could make it work, I just have to be,
Is the 22nd better?
I just have to flop my schedules around that week, so it'll be a little weird for
I think we were,
everybody, but.
Okay, I'm getting confused.
well, we were doing the 22nd all day.
I was just thinking Ted had a hard time with the original, and so if there was a
Yeah.
different one of these half days
How's
that
April
you could make a full day, that would have been better than the.
Okay.
April. That would be much better for me. Yeah,
What's that?
So April 22nd would be better for a noon to 8 than May 7th. We wanted to keep it in the evening, May 7th. And do the
How does
bigger
it
chunk.
sound?
So then May 7th would turn back to a 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So the 22nd, noon to 8, the 7th, 4 to 8. The 22nd, 8 to 4.
Yep.
4.
4 to 8, yep.
Okay.
And the ninth is still 8 to 4.
But I have to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
And you're gonna give us location.
Yes, they will work on that.
Yep. So this.
So you were working through that.
Read my chicken.
Well, no, I'm just saying, it's just. part of
Wilson
it.
signed it.
That's Bruce.
Probably Bruce.
But where's the perfect?
It doesn't, I'm not really. I have it. Same way.
I'm ready 7. So busy in there. Stuff, 32 o'clock.
All right, we got 2 articles signed off tonight.
Yeah.
More than 2.
Well, don't thing was proposed.
15 technically. I'm with you, 15.
There we go. Right, but I tell you, what, on your newsletter, you can say 2. On our newsletter, we'll say.
No.
No, we just,
That's how
our
I
newsletter
started.
says 15 of them.
Cute.
Oh, this was my.
All I got left.
It is.
Yeah. You were deep in thought.
I think we know what we're bringing back on the ninth, but we want to reserve the right to.
Okay, I got your text.
Yeah. To sleep on it. and-
We got it. We got it. No, I've been going since 5 o'clock.
Sunday.
4 to 8.
So you might wanna let whoever knows doing the calendar.
Thank you.
Like I'm not on the district calendar.
Gresham-Barlow are for June 11th.
Yeah, so like that was
Because
there.
I was checking today, this child, always get neglected.
I added you.
Thank
I mean,
you.
no, 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 come on, it's just-